Welcome back to Generals on the March. Generals on the March is a storytelling podcast focused on telling the athletic history of Washington and Lee University through sit-down interviews with alumni, coaches, and athletes, detailing the athletic experience at our school and explaining how our school's history, traditions, and values make the athletic experience unique. I'm your host, Thomas Wakefield, a first-year football player here at the university, recording from the Generals Redoubts podcasting studio here at Fancy Hill. Join me today as we sit down with Jack Clayton. Jack is a sophomore and plays offensive line for the football team. He's been academic All-ODAC and academic All-American. He also, on the offensive line, plays right next to me in game. So, Jack, first question. It's a typical one we start out with on the show. What brought you to W&L? For the recruiting process in high school, where else did you look? What attracted you to W&L? Walk us through the journey that got you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
I'd say that I've been experienced with W&L. I went to Norfolk Academy for high school, and I have a couple people there that I knew that went to Washington and Lee. My basketball coach, Eric Acra, he played baseball here, and one of my football coaches also played football here as well. I think that was like my first experience, but I wasn't really thinking about Washington and Lee as much until I really got into the recruiting process. I was talking to a couple other schools. There were a couple other Division I schools that I was really looking at. University of Richmond was a big one, Bucknell, a few of the Ivies, a couple other D3 schools around Randolph-Macon, Hampton-Sydney, talking to them. I think what really drew me to Washington and Lee was the ability to really do whatever I want. I was very heavy on going to a Division I school. I really wanted to do that. But the thing about going to Division I versus Division III is that with Division I, football is your life. You're doing nothing else other than football. And here at Washington and Lee, I'm looking to go to medical school afterwards because I'm pre-med. A lot of people can go study abroad and things like that. At fraternities, I was able to rush a fraternity. I think that just gives a lot more college experience that you wouldn't get at a Division I or some other Division III schools.
Of course. Yeah, I think that's something that we can all agree on. We talk about it a lot on the show with previous guests. We all talk about how it's reflective of the university's commitment to liberal arts education, with also the FDRs and the encouragement to explore a broad array of study fields. But it doesn't just apply to the studies; it applies to what you're doing athletically, socially. The university does really, I think, encourage you to explore a wide variety of just general things in life as part of education. And I think that's something that a lot of W&L people would agree with. Being from Virginia, looking at schools like Macon, Sydney, W&L, I was wondering, since they're all D3, you wouldn't have the same restrictions in regards to academics or fraternities you might have at Division I. But other than just the academic kind of excellence here, what do you think is the biggest difference between W&L or a Macon or a Sydney based on your recruiting experience?
Other than academic, because Washington Lee is by far a better academic institution than both those, I would say the biggest one is just the people. I remember when I went on my visit to Macon versus my visit here, it was night and day in terms of how friendly the people were, how friendly the athletes were, and it's a much more friendly environment here. You talk around here, during orientation, you talk about speaking tradition and all that kind of stuff. And it's just everyone here is so friendly and willing to help. And that's just one thing that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that too transcends into the actual athletic experience, because a lot of athletes, especially the ones that I've interviewed here on the podcast, have agreed that the athletic teams here are a lot like familiar units. It's very close. And I think for football especially, we can relate to that, because I think Macon's 180 kids in the roster through varsity and JV. We have 70 on a good year. I think that because of the small school factor, which obviously Macon and Sydney are small schools too, but because of the small school factor and the fact that not everybody there is an athlete, while a lot of people at Macon and Sydney are athletes, I feel we get really close to each other, especially bonded on the football team.
Yeah, take someone that's an offensive lineman for Macon. They're not going to be nearly as close to the defensive backs for Macon as well. For us, one of my best friends is Tucker Washburn. He's a corner and he's one of my best buds. But on a bigger team with 200 plus kids, you're not making that same connection. And I think that just makes the football team a whole lot tighter as well, because we're able to rely on each other. And it doesn't matter what position you play. It's that you're going to have each other's backs.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think it does spill over into the culture. We sacrifice for each other. And also the whys at the beginning of every season, everybody who gets up, some part of their why is, I want to sacrifice for you guys because we're such a tight-knit unit. You guys are my brothers. And I think that it really does contribute to our success on the field because we are like outmanned both in numbers and probably in terms of athletes by schools like that. So I think that's definitely really beneficial to the team at large here. As we've started transitioning and talking about, athletics here, I was wondering, obviously we're both offensive linemen, and I think that with the system that we run offensively, the offensive line is kind of the engine that makes that system go. I was wondering, how was that? Because I definitely had some issues transitioning from high school to that system, to the system last fall. Coming from Norfolk, what did you guys run there? And like, how did you transition from that to the triple here?
Yeah, it was actually really funny. We were pretty pass heavy, especially my senior year. Our quarterback is now one of the quarterbacks over at Wesleyan University up in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a game against one of our rivals where through like the middle of the first quarter all the way to the end of the game, we only passed the ball.
Damn.
It was just straight shotgun pass, like everything. So going from that to like purely triple option where it's like 70 to 80% run, it was definitely a switch. But I think you just kind of learn to enjoy it because run blocking, it's one of the more fun aspects of being a offensive lineman. Just be able to impose your will on a defensive lineman and just move him. I think that's just, one of the most fun things. And like, sure, like I do enjoy pass blocking for sure. I think just being able to enjoy the technicalities of it are just like, I think that's really cool. But I think there's something really exciting about being a offensive lineman, just imposing your will on a defensive lineman and putting them into the ground 5 yards downfield.
I would definitely agree with that. And I think that's something that we take a lot of pride in as a football team, just as the physicality in general. That's part of our culture. I think that the physicality is something that the coaches harp on because I remember LaRose before the Salisbury game this year would always harp, no matter how high they're ranked, they're not going to be more physical than you. They're not going to have it harder than we do in practice every day. And I do think that culture is something that's baked into the team from like the very ground up, and I do think it helps us a lot.
Yeah, and it's also just the mindset that we all know that like, there's going to be teams that are going to have better athletes that are going to have a better system coming in. But I think just having that mindset that like, no one is going to stop you is just like, exactly what we need.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that we can talk about athletics for a while and probably we'll come back to it at some point later. But I was wondering too, like you said, pre-med, fraternity life, like all that stuff. When you came to W&L, did you come in knowing that you wanted to be pre-med, and did that affect like where you looked for colleges at all or no?
Yeah, I've always been pretty interested in medicine. I was definitely looking at like certain schools that would align with that. I was always looking at just pretty high academic institutions in general. My only other true offer was from the University of Chicago.
Yeah.
So just kind of looking at that and then also talking with some of the NESCAC schools and other high academic institutions. That's kind of what I wanted just because I knew I wanted to be challenged academically and be able to use that to progress my career. I would say one of the things that really popped out to me in terms of pre-med for W&L is that I forget the exact, but I think it's 95% of the people that are going to med school, like after like 4 years or 4 or 5 years out, it's 95% of them get into med school.
Wow.
It's a very strong, like we have a very strong pre-med program here, even though it's not like specifically like you're a pre-med major, which I think is honestly better because then it allows you to explore so many other ways and that a liberal arts does instead of being specifically pre-med where like you are only taking classes to advance your pre-med career. Like you are able to take so many other classes that might actually make you a more well-rounded and then better applicant.
Yeah. I think that's, again, indicative of the university's commitment to liberal arts and pushing people out to explore a wide variety of things. There's a lot of things you could say. You can say FDRs, you can say the fact that nobody applies to the major, you don't declare to the end of your sophomore year. And I think that does benefit for us in a lot of ways because we have a lot of really funky double majors here, but I think that is a good thing so people explore their interests. I was wondering too, like pre-med, obviously I'm not pre-med, so I don't know, but from what I hear and understand, there's a lot of like out of class commitment for pre-med. So I was wondering like if that's ever impacted with football or like how is the balance with that? Do the teachers respect the football part of it? Do the football coaches respect the pre-med part of it? Or how does that work? Have you experienced that so far?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of like out of class stuff with pre-meds and not even just with like classes specifically, but also just like your extracurriculars. Like there's a certain amount of like clinical hours or
Yeah.
volunteering or like that you need outside of it. So like, for example, right now I'm getting my EMT license. So having that on top of a full workload plus of all of our off-season football lifts, like it's a lot, certainly. But I think it's just kind of the biggest things is just to be able to take care of yourself know how much you need to put, like how much stress your body can go under and how much stress your mind can go under. And I think just like being able to take care of yourself and like just know that like everything is gonna work out okay. I think that's kind of what's gotten me to the point where I am today.
Gotcha. And I think that again, that's something that in W&L, like we can't kind of keep referring to W&L like it's a person, but like I think the university does have goals behind what it does. Obviously, I think that like the trust that the students will be able to be like mature, responsible individuals is something that, I mean, it's not unique here. Like every college obviously places some amount of emphasis on that for their students, but I think with like the honor system, I think with stuff like that, the university really does treat us almost like equal partners in terms of like you need to get done, like the rules, how you have to go about it. I think that's something that this school really excels at doing and pushing its students to do. All of us like have experiences with liberal arts where we're like taking stuff that's interesting to us, taking stuff that like we didn't think we'd take. And I was wondering if you had any experiences or something like that where you ended up in a class that like you never thought you'd be in, but looks interesting to you because I don't know. I know I've had that a few times here already.
Yeah, I would actually say one class that I'm taking right now is Intro to Poverty and like Inequality
Hmm.
Studies. And it was funny because like I wasn't planning on taking the class because like I got for winter registration,
Hmm.
I got like pretty screwed. I went 0 for 4.
Ooh.
And but I was like just trying to find things that like would either help me with my major or help me with the pre-med aspect.
Hmm.
And it was one of the classes that they suggest. And I think like it was actually one of the most interesting classes that I could take. First off, the Professor Pickett is like one of the best professors in my opinion at Washington and Lee. He is like it's amazing on how well he can make you think about topics that you just never thought about before. And it's just such an interesting class because it also just like tackles very contemporary issues that like I've seen growing up that like I've seen on the news and just like around like in my life. And it's just, I think like that is like that class specifically is the one that comes to mind the most.
Gotcha. What issues type of things are covered in that class? Because I've heard a lot about POV, but I've never actually taken a POV class.
It depends on the year. It is starting off with like how's just like very basic stuff of like how you measure it and like different like philosophies and ethics and stuff. And then you kind of get into more like the contemporary issues. So like I remember one of the most interesting ones that to me was the aspects of like organ donation and organ selling
Oh wow.
and like how in countries around the world like you can get people who kind of get taken advantage of in terms of being able to sell their organs because they're in such poverty.
Really?
And we kind of brought up the question of like how far do we go to where like do we allow the aspect of like organ selling almost we tackle that and like think about all the different possibilities of what that would mean. And I think like the biggest thing is that always is whatever idea that you come up with, there's always 1,000 different ways that it could go wrong. And like there's so many different consequences no matter what the action is. And it's just kind of taking the pros with the cons.
Yeah. I think too, classes like POV and LJS are like really specific. Like I don't know of any other school in the world that has those. There might be some, but I'm not aware of them. But like stuff like that, I think we just get like an opportunity to study so many cool things here. And like whether that's programs that are pretty unique, even some stuff that's unique to liberal arts, like the accredited business school. Not many liberal arts schools have that. Like even spring term, there's so many things in spring term that like I'm really excited for it. Like I think it'll definitely be interesting, but like stuff that I've never considered before. Like I think that the university really, and again, I keep saying it, but like that they push us to do so many interesting things without us even realizing it.
Yeah, spring term was also really interesting last year because like last year I took a class on learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Like
Really?
I'd like nearly I was never planning on ever playing Dungeons and Dragons, but it was actually like such a cool experience because like you could approach it in so many different ways and where like you learn how to write the story of like game that you're playing and like being able to play with the people that I like literally just met in the class and I would see them out on campus and say hi to them because like you get to meet during this
Yeah,
class and I think it's just like one of the coolest things.
it definitely is. I think that also we're all grateful to the university for offering us like cool stuff like that and not locking us into like, obviously we all work hard here. We're all very dialed into our majors, but like, there's a lot of wiggle room, I would say, to explore stuff, which is really cool. Kind of moving back over again to the athletic side of things. I was wondering, how was your like journey from, because finishing up your sophomore year, heading into junior year, we talked about this with Cole when I had him on a little bit earlier. Like the sophomore junior year is a big transition in terms of like going into being an upperclassman, quote unquote, like more of a kind of a leadership role. I was wondering what are some differences you noticed either in like your preparation or your freshman and sophomore year just generally, and like what are you looking to apply for your junior year and some goals you have for yourself and the team?
Yeah, I would say in terms of goals, my biggest one is at least all conference. This year was the first year that I played a little bit my freshman year, but this was the first year that I really started all of my games. And I think this year was good, but there were a lot of things that like we're still not on autopilot quite yet.
Yeah.
So I think now that I have a year under my belt, like I know what I'm doing. I think there's a lot of things that can go on autopilot, and I can really just focus on being a real ass kicker.
Yeah. I think conference is really realistic, just obviously personally. Also, I was wondering like if the way you approach like practice or lifts or anything, like your mindset surrounding that, if the way you approach like your day to day, how have you noticed that changing? Have you noticed it helping you? I don't know. It's a specific question, but it's something that like I kind of already seen happening. So I'm wondering, kind of someone who's a year older, if you've noticed it as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's a little different for me because like through winter workouts and like spring ball, like I already know what all of it's like. I've already have a year under my belt with that. So I think now it's just kind of like fine tuning like the little things about
Like
like
the little technical things.
yeah, like the little technical things. I would say the fine tuning the different things about like even like stuff that you wouldn't really think about. It's just like in terms of like sleep, recovery, nutrition, fine tuning all those things to like really make sure that I'm putting myself at maximum. Like that's really what I'm really focusing on
Yeah.
this off season.
Yeah. I think that's something I would definitely agree with. You learn how important sleep is in college, I think. Like, I didn't really take it for granted as much in high school, also because in high school, you have to wake up super early every day. But, like, I think that taking for granted sleep, quality of sleep, all that, like, plays a big role for sure. Kind of thing I was getting on earlier in the show about how the offensive line is the engine of the team. I was wondering, like, who are some, like, people that you've looked up to in your first couple years here, some people that you've learned from, and, like, what lessons did you take away from kind of the seniors and juniors when you were trying to come up and find your place and role?
Yeah, I think freshman year coming in, I think one of my biggest people that I looked up to was he was a fifth year senior. His name was Tyler Halliday. He was from Virginia Beach, so back where I was from. So I kind of looked at him, and he was just the way that he played the game reminded me of the way that I want to play the game. Just like complete ass kicker, just run people out the way. And he was a big guy too, so like
Yeah.
I could like very much envision myself playing in the same style as him. And then another one that I really looked up to was Kalen, just the way that he carries himself.
Yeah.
Kalen's, I would say he's one of the most guys that's just true to himself in terms of the way that he carries himself. He doesn't really care about what other people think about him. Like he knows that he's true to himself, and I just really respect that and hope that I can be like him in that sense.
Yeah. I also wondered too, based on what because again, Cole and I had a similar conversation to this. Cole talked a lot about the importance like finding your voice and like whether that is like and trying to help lead or just finding a role on the team. I was wondering how that journey's gone for you over the past couple years as well.
Yeah, as a freshman, I feel like most freshmen can realize that like you come in, like you're just kind of trying to learn the ropes, like you stay
Yeah.
a little quiet. I think this year, now that I have like I was starting to get playing time, like I was trying to find a little bit of a role, but like I still kind of let it up go to the upperclassmen. But now that I'm an upperclassman now, like I just really need to focus on like really leading the team because we have Wes Allenstein, who
Yeah.
is lineman of the year in the ODAC, all region player. I want to see myself as that next guy up.
Yeah.
So like helping him kind of lead the team so that I can be the next guy to like really lead the O line and maybe become captain of the football team one day.
Yeah. And I think that too, like the fact that like we have that like progression of hierarchy that like is pretty common among all position groups, I would say. There's always degrees of leadership. And that may not make sense. So let me rephrase that. Tucker was like the captain last year, quote unquote. But that doesn't mean Kalen wasn't a leader or Wes wasn't a leader. Like it's almost like even if the captaincy changes from year to year, it's like roles get handed down because it's not just one person leading any specific position group. You have the quote unquote leader, the captain, but like everybody does what they can to lead a little bit. And it's kind of like that just you grow into these roles as you get older. Because like all the freshmen kind of need to be like, I know I did, I know Zay did for sure, D Star, Tip. Like all of us needed to get led in a lot of ways. So like even you, Chills, like the juniors, everybody has a part to play in leadership. And I think that it's cool to see people kind of grow up and assume these roles as they go through the program. I think it's again something the benefit of our program that we have such strong player leadership.
Yeah, and I would even say like for you, like being able to be thrown into the fire like this your freshman year and start at center, like even you were even leading as a leader because like no one really thinks about a freshman coming in and having this much of an impact. And like especially with like you and Clemens, like we like even the upperclassmen really look to you guys as leaders because of your impact on the field and being able to like lead each other off in the way that you guys like approach lifts and everything.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that it just shows like the leadership isn't determined by grade, isn't determined by really anything except finding your role and doing what you can with that role. And I think that we all understand and intuitively what we can and can't do. and we all try to play to that part. Which even Clemens, for example, like he's not here, but like when T-Town was healthy, like he knew his role was kind of like a change of pace guy. He was the Oklahomas. He got a few carries here and there, but like played that role really well. And when T-Town got hurt, he stepped up. I think that's really cool that we all have the ability to play our role, but like we can do more. But like none of us are trying to just do what's best for ourselves. We're all playing the role that the coaches have decided is best for us because we know that's how we win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of wrapping up here, reminisce a little bit. Some favorite moments for your first couple years. I was wondering, like stuff that sticks out to you when you think about your W&L football experience so far.
First one that came to mind was like, I remember freshman year when we went to San Antonio to go play Trinity. One of my first things, like one of the goals that I had was to get at least some playing time by Trinity because I had family that was coming to the game in San Antonio that's from Texas. And although like I wasn't really getting playing time, a couple of the upperclassmen went down and I got put in. And I think that was actually really cool just to be able to like know that like even as a freshman coming in, like one of the nice things about not being a 200-person roster is that like you will get playing time as a freshman. Like,
and there's always one that contributes meaningfully.
yes, exactly. So I think that's just like, I think to me that was a really cool experience. I would say winning our bowl games, both times was really cool. I think we're now I believe we're the first team to win both.
We are the first team both, I think. Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool experience, especially last year, my freshman year, going to go play in Salem Stadium. That's a really cool stadium that I'm looking forward to playing this year when we go play Roanoke. Yep. Yeah, I think, and then just like overall, just getting to know the guys, just like hanging out, doing different things together. Like, I think just like overall, just the experiences overall has been really fun.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It's definitely been like different than what I was expecting so far, but it's been honestly better in a lot of ways. Like, I think the football program here, if there's any recruits listening, like, can't recommend it enough. Like, it's been amazing so far. Very excited for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Wrapping up, so actual last question here. W&L students especially, and all D3 athletes really, we get involved with a lot more than just the sports. We do a lot more. So I was wondering, what are some of like the most impactful other like either organizations or things you've been involved with while you've been here have been so far?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is being able to rush a fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi. I think that's just really been a really fun experience because coming in, I wasn't expecting to rush a fraternity. I thought football was going to be a fraternity, but then you meet so many people, even just outside the football team. Like one of my best friends, Trent Halterman.
Yeah.
He's like one of my best buddies on campus. And if I hadn't rushed, I wouldn't be nearly as close to him as if we hadn't both rushed the same fraternity. And then just like other different, like getting to know people in different ways. I play a lot of pickup basketball with a lot of the club basketball guys. And I think that's really just a really fun experience to go because I played basketball in high school. So
yeah,
like having that experience of like being able to still play other sports.
Yeah.
And not just be like a strictly football player, but like because I was an athlete growing up, like football, basketball, lacrosse, just anything that I could get my hands on. Being able to still have that part of me is like still really exciting.
Yeah, I imagine. And like a couple things, like you said, building off that before we wrap up, we don't even ban guys from playing multiple sports. Like Division One, like obviously they guard their players because they kind of have to. If they lose a couple guys and they lose a few games, they'd be axed. I mean, obviously, I think that the coaches here may have a bit more leniency, but I think it turns out better for us in a lot of ways because Jack Payne, football and lacrosse, and like Fidel, football track, like O'Keefe, Will Knight before he left the team, like all of those guys being able to do more than one sport is a really cool thing that I think only really happens at this level because while there's a lot of commitment, we're in the gym 5 days a week, running, lifting, all that, even in the off season, it isn't a full-time job. So you are able to have more than that, which is really cool. And I do think too, we talk about a lot, again, like the fraternities in this school do really open up a broader social network. And it's cool to get them because like obviously the guys on the football team will always be your brothers, they'll always be the guy you hang out with and see the most, but you are able to bond with and hang out with so many more people. That's really cool. Thank you very much for coming on today, Jack. Unless you have anything else, that's about all I have for you.
No, thank you.
Of course, man. And the listeners, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time on Journals on the March.